Hello everybody and welcome back to another not applicable Formula 1 video. I hope that you are well. We are getting ready and raring to go for the business end of the season. And with just 8 races to go and 5 points, the gap between Max Verstappen and Lewis Hamilton, it is going to go down to the wire. So I wanted to use this week to delve into why I think Lewis Hamilton might win this title and how I think he can guarantee himself to win this title when it comes to the end of the season, lifting his 8th World Drivers' Championship. Can we get our head around that? That is absolutely crazy. 8 World Championships if he manages to pull off a win this season and gain those 5 points on Max Verstappen. I want to talk about 5 things that I think Lewis Hamilton can do to make sure he guarantees his name is written next to that World Drivers' Championship this season. The first thing that comes to mind when it comes to Hamilton this season is the fact that he has continually played the percentages. He's always been there or thereabouts. But in previous years, that's been good enough, right? In previous years, he's had a massive car advantage over everybody else. Only the Ferraris really getting that much closer. And obviously, Rosberg was luckily in the same car as Hamilton. That's why he gave him so much of a headache. But overall, compared to the rest of the field, generally playing it safe and just being there consistently has been enough for Lewis Hamilton. We've seen that whenever it's come down to the wheel-to-wheel battles between him and Verstappen, he's always been fairly happy to duck out of it when all's said and done. Like, we saw it in Imola, he was fairly happy. You know, we saw it in Monza as well, down into turn 4. He was fairly happy to, lose that place if it meant he was going to continue the race. And, he'll gain that position back on Max Verstappen later on the race if he can. Whereas Max is very, very aggressive. And I think although we've seen Lewis Hamilton win titles with this passive approach before, I think Max Verstappen might even ramp it up a little bit harder towards the end of the season. And we might have to see Lewis Hamilton come out a bit more offensive, have that fight, have that tenacity, and go in a little bit more aggressive when it comes to these battles. We kind of saw it in Monza. He didn't leave quite enough space to Verstappen. I know that Verstappen was at fault for that, though, in my opinion. But he was pushing it to the limit. He made sure that Max Verstappen had to back out of that. Max Verstappen didn't, hence they came together. But I think Lewis Hamilton should be slightly more aggressive towards the end of this season. And I think that'll just benefit him because, he's always been there. He never really DNFs. It was his first DNF in 63 races. And that is why he's so much closer to Verstappen. Verstappen has 7 wins to his 4. But he needs to up it a little bit, in my opinion, if he's going to win this championship. The second thing that I think he can do is just stop making mistakes. I know that seems so obvious, but Lewis Hamilton this season has not been vintage Lewis Hamilton. I wouldn't say that he's been perfect. A lot of seasons we've seen beforehand, he's been so incredibly good. And he's had races this season where he's shown it. But at the same time, I can't remember a season where Lewis Hamilton has made this many mistakes. We think back to Baku, getting it wrong at the start line. For me, that was a race that he should have gone on to win. Max Verstappen had crashed out into the wall. That was 25 points that were available to him then. If he'd have gained that, he'd be 20 points of Verstappen ahead right now. If things would have played out exactly the same, but Lewis Hamilton would have won that race. And those inconsistencies, the same we saw this weekend. Just inconsistency when it came to the start, losing places to both of the McLarens and nearly Gasly as well. Just the inconsistencies we've seen from Hamilton, the little mistakes that are starting to come into his game, they worry me moving into these last 8 races. Although he hasn't DNF'd a lot, there have been mistakes. There have been problems with the car. There have been problems with Hamilton in that seat. And I'm worried that moving forward, that might cost him by the end of the season. I want him to be a little bit more aggressive without being clumsy, showing that incredible driving ability that he has without those tiny mistakes creeping into his game. Because the more mistakes that he makes over the course of this season, as we've seen, it's losing him points already. He doesn't want to lose anymore. He can't let that gap of 5 points get any bigger, really. He needs to keep it at least within 25 for the rest of the season. When it comes to Max Verstappen as well and Lewis Hamilton, the next thing I think that he needs to do is ramp up the pressure. We know that Lewis Hamilton has been in title fights before. So he needs to absolutely ramp up the pressure on Max Verstappen. We've seen Max Verstappen crack, okay? We've seen after Silverstone, the cracks came in. We think back to that press conference in Hungary. Those cracks started to show. And then after Hungary, I think Max Verstappen was very lucky that that was the summer break because he was getting frustrated. He was getting aggravated with the press. He was getting annoyed with the fact that that was continually being asked of him. And I think we're going to have exactly the same this season. I think we're going to have exactly the same after this last clash that they've had. And if those cracks start to show again, Hamilton can just use that experience, ramp up that pressure a little bit more. And Hamilton is without error. When it comes to press conferences, Lewis's media persona is flawless. And the summer break kind of came at the wrong time for him because I think that was a real opportunity for him to start turning the screw on Verstappen. And I think maybe this is now another opportunity moving into Russia to turn that screw a little bit more. Use his experience, use that pressure. And whilst we're talking of experience, I think that's the fourth thing he needs to do. Use every single ounce of experience that he's got with Mercedes as a team. We've seen them consistently just turn up. The mind games that Lewis Hamilton and Mercedes have over Red Bull, we see it all the time. Every single time Toto Wolff says anything about Red Bull, Christian Horner bites. I think personally, when it comes to the mentality, when it comes to their experience at the front of the grid, Mercedes are miles ahead of Red Bull, and they need to use that experience. We've seen it so many times. Massa, Rosberg, Vettel. Hamilton's been there, done it, fought against the best, and come out on top. He needs to do that again. And alongside that, luckily he's got an experienced team behind him that is going to carry him the whole way through. He's been at the top. He's won 7 World Drivers' Championships. You don't do that by luck. You get there because you've got a team behind you and a teammate behind you who is absolutely phenomenal. He needs to use Valtteri Bottas to his best of his possible ability. Valtteri Bottas is going to want to go out on a high. He's going to want to go out on a winning team. They've won so many World Drivers' Championships together as a teammates. They've won so many Constructors' Championships together. They're currently in the lead of the Constructors' Championship now because Bottas has been improving so much over this last couple of races, has got a little bit of a lead now on Perez in terms of points as well. He needs to use the fact that he's got Bottas, he's got that team behind him, and he's got Mercedes. And thinking of that, the final thing that I think he needs to use to his advantage is, personally, these last 8 races, I think, suit the Mercedes car better. Now, the Mercedes car this season, for me, has been the worst package. It's been the slower of the 2 cars. The Red Bull has been absolutely phenomenal. All you need to do is look at how many laps Max Verstappen has led compared to Hamilton. Hamilton has led very few laps over the course of this season, but he is only 5 points away. Hamilton has only won 4 races to Max Verstappen's 7, but he is only 5 points away. And Mercedes just know how to turn it up and turn it on when they need to. It would not surprise me if Mercedes have got a little upgrade up their sleeve, not maybe for Russia, but in a couple of races' time, and suddenly they find a 10th. Suddenly they find 2 tenths. They click into gear. And with the tracks that are left, I think they personally suit the Mercedes car just that little bit more. Mercedes innovating in the way that they do, Toto Wolff leading the team in the way that they do. Hamilton needs to lean on that. He needs to lean on the fact that Mercedes, as a team, have been there, done it. They're winners. They know exactly how to win every single time they've been put under any pressure. They've turned around. They've come out on top. And he needs to lean into that. He needs to lean into the staff. He needs to lean into Bottas. He needs to lean into Toto Wolff and use the fact that he's got that experience and the slight track advantages over these last 8 races. And then he can narrow that gap. And again, with that advantage over these last 8 races on those tracks, using that advantage to crank up the pressure on Max. Stop playing the percentages. Get aggressive. Start pushing Max to the absolute limit of his ability. But whilst doing so, making sure that those mistakes from Lewis Hamilton don't creep in as well. Overall, Lewis only needs to find 5 points. I know that sounds like very, very few points when you get 25 for a win, but these guys are going to go absolutely down to the wire. 5 points he needs to find, 200 points left on the table, and it wouldn't surprise me if he can do it again. Personally, I think Max has the advantage at this moment in time, but Lewis Hamilton knows how to turn it on, knows how to turn it around. Let me know in the comments below, what do you think Lewis Hamilton needs to do to guarantee he wins a crazy 8th World Drivers' Championship? 8 World Drivers' Championships. Can't even believe I'm saying it. The absolute one of the best drivers we will ever see. And can he lead out this generation of car into 2022 with another championship? Let me know in the comments down below. Leave a like, subscribe. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time.